Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. Coming up right now, we have some very exciting segments ahead. Like I said, we are moving from IDP to fantasy college football. We talked about the running backs last episode. The quarterbacks rather last episode. Sorry about that. But we are moving on to their backfield partners, the running backs, and later on in the show, we'll be looking at the wide receivers. So I'm just going to pull up my graphic here. But looking at college running backs, we have some really exciting young players on this list. A lot of different conferences represented, one conference in particular that I'm really excited to talk about. So let's get right into it. Starting off at number 10, though, we have a group of 5 representative. We talked about his quarterback in the backfield last episode. Now we talk about him, Ismail Mahdi. He had 223 carries last year for 1,331 yards and 10 TDs. If you're looking for a low-profile kind of guy from a group of 5 school that has potential to be one of the more exciting schools in the group of 5, look for a guy in Ismail Mahdi who can have that production. Texas State brought in Jordan McLeod to kind of bolster this squad and really make them really talented. And while they're not the most high-profile group of 5 school, I think they're going to have a lot of exciting pieces on their offense. We talked about them a little bit last episode when we talked about Jordan McLeod and what he brings from JMU. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this backfield operates. So look out for Ismail Mahdi at the number 10 position for your fantasy college football team, rather. Coming in at number 10, he's starting off a run of Big 12 running backs. We're going to see a lot of them on this list. DJ Giddens. DJ Giddens of Kansas State, 223 carries last year, 1,226 yards, and 10 TDs. Coming out of Kansas State is one of those teams in the Big 12 that are right there. They are expecting to compete in the Big 12. It's going to be interesting to see how they transition from a guy in Will Howard who was such a reliable, steady hand at the QB position to a guy in Avery Johnson who offers more of a dual threat kind of ability. So it's going to be interesting to see how DJ Giddens gets his production. Obviously, Chris Kleiman is such a great offensive mind over there at Kansas State. So it's going to be interesting to see how he implements both Giddens and Johnson into the system because of Johnson's abilities as a dual threat QB. But I'm really excited to see how DJ Giddens progresses. Could be a very nice pick in a fantasy college football league. Coming in at the number 8 position, another Big 12 running back. Sorry, I'm getting all mixed up with my fantasy college football positions. We are going to off with Devin Neal. 203 carries last year, 1,280 yards, 16 touchdowns. Now, Kansas is such a weird team because when they have healthy quarterbacks, they're honestly one of the best offensive teams in the country. When Jalen Daniels is healthy, they are one of the best offensive teams in the country, especially when you add in Devin Neal's production. But that has not been the case over the past couple of years. We have seen Jalen Daniels go off and on the field constantly, no constant stability at the QB position, but Devin Neal has always been a constant for the Kansas backfield. Whoever the quarterback is, look for them to have a nice little partnership. I love Devin Neal as a running back. He has been such a pest in the Big 12, and if Kansas wants to compete in a new look Big 12, it all starts with the backfield, whoever is the quarterback, and Devin Neal. So I'm really excited to see what he can do this year in terms of fantasy. Coming in at number 7, let's keep the Big 12 train rolling with a guy who may not be familiar to so many people because of the fact that he kind of came onto the scene last year. Taj Brooks, 290 carries last year, 1,541 yards, 10 TDs. He was only the second quarter running back in the Big 12 in terms of production behind the guy at number 1. Hint, hint there. But ultimately, Taj Brooks is a nice little surprise. Last year, some people may have benefited from taking him if they knew about him. This year, he's not as much as a surprise, so try and get him as early as possible. I really like what he did for Texas Tech, a team that is in the lower half of the Big 12. So They can still put up points, though, and it all starts with Taj Brooks, obviously. They don't have the best of quarterbacks in terms of production, but Taj Brooks is such an exciting player. Should be a steal, still a steal in my opinion, for anyone looking to bolster their fantasy college football squad. So I'm really, really excited about him. Coming in at number 6, another guy who a lot of people might not be familiar with, Darius Taylor. Darius Taylor of Minnesota. Minnesota have had a couple good running backs in the past couple of years, like Muhammad Ibrahim, but Minnesota is a team in transition in the Big Ten. They lose a guy in Athan Kaliakmanis at the QB position to Rutgers. They bring in Max Brosmer from New Hampshire, who has 36 career starts, but ultimately, I think that Darius Taylor will get a lot of production now because Minnesota is going to be one of those teams in the lower half of the Big Ten. So look for him to get a lot of rushing yards there. Coming in at number 5, probably my favorite guy on this list, Phil Maffa, and I'll tell you why. For the best part of 2 decades, the thing in people's minds that Clemson could always hang their hat on was stability at the QB position. You had 2 guys in Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, who on any given Sunday you could rely on. And now that's gone. We saw transitioning into the 2020s with DJ Uyunglele, the failure there, and we're seeing it a little bit with Cade Klubnik as he's trying to adjust to the pressure of being the Clemson QB. And so, as we saw last year, the running backs for Clemson really step up the spotlight. Will Shipley obviously was such a great running back for them as well. And now it's Phil Maffa's turn. I love Phil Maffa. Such a Dabo Sweeney player as well. So much heart and grit. Last year, 179 yards, 905 yards and 179 carries, 13 touchdowns for him. Look for him to have a big year, and in my honest opinion, for the next couple of years, always be sure to look out for Clemson running backs in terms of fantasy college football, because trust me, the narrative is shifting from a QB school to a running back school, and that is why I love Phil Maffa. Coming in at number 4, another Big 12 guy in RJ Harvey of UCF. 226 carries last year, 1,416 yards. Sorry, I'm getting all muddled up. 16 touchdowns. This is a guy on a team where UCF is going to be one of those teams that puts up a lot of points, not a lot of wins. So look for him to have a huge amount of production. Obviously, UCF is not the prettiest team in the Big 12. They're going to be sitting at the lower half of the table, but the Big 12 is such an even conference where on any given Saturday, a team can put up a huge amount of points and surprise people, and RJ Harvey is reflective of that. We have a lot of Big 12 running backs on this list, such a diverse conference where running backs can be the stars of the show. So I'm looking forward to seeing how RJ Harvey at UCF plays this season. Coming in at number 3, a guy who I expect to kind of regress to the mean, but still could be one of the preeminent running backs in college football this year, Omarion Hampton. Obviously, he loses his QB in Drake May, and they bring in Max Johnson from Texas A&M to take over that QB role. Obviously, Omarion Hampton, another one of those guys who just came onto the scene out of nowhere, really benefited from having an experienced QB in Drake May last year. So that is why I think his production will go down. But still, he could be an interesting player, mainly due to the fact that UNC is transitioning QBs, and so he might get more rushing production, but we'll have to see. He had 1,504 yards last year and 15 touchdowns. So overall, Omarion Hampton, look for him in a team where the QB situation isn't as set as it would like to be, to have a huge amount of production. Coming in at number 2 on this list is a player who I'm really excited about in a group of 5 team who can make a lot of noise this year, Aston Janti. The story with Boise State is an interesting one. They get former 5-star recruit Malachi Nelson from USC after he saw that Miller Moss was more likely than him to be the starting QB for USC. He transfers to Boise State, and now they become one of the more high-profile names in the group of 5. Ashton Jonty already being one of those huge production running backs last year. 1,347 yards, 14 touchdowns last year for him. I'm really excited for him and this Boise State team to make some noise if Malachi Nelson is who they think they are. Ashton Jonty is already a staple of that backfield, so I'm really excited to see how Boise State looks this year. But coming in at number 1 overall, is it really any surprise? Our last Big 12 representative, probably the best one, Ollie Gordon II. 1,732 yards last year, 21 touchdowns, Doak Walker recipient, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. All the accolades for Ollie Gordon. For an Oklahoma State team last year who surprised a lot of people by making it to the Big 12 championship. They're going to surprise no one this year. I do see them kind of still being one of the preeminent Big 12 squads. If Alan Bowman, a journeyman QB, can keep on producing big yardage numbers. But it all starts and ends with Ollie Gordon, in my opinion, for OSU going into the season. And in a much more even Big 12, Ollie Gordon, I expect to put up even better stats. Maybe sniffing 2,000 yards, that might be wishful thinking, but I think he has it in him to be a dominant force. He's likely going to be gone quickly off of fantasy college football boards come draft time. So be sure to get him as quickly as possible. But that will just about do it for this edition of my top 10. Coming up next, be sure to tune in for the wide receivers in the next segment. Should be very exciting. We will be right back to talk about them.